Now, Nazi memorabilia. There was an auction over the weekend. It was in the New South Wales town of Bredbow, which is quite close to the ACT. And there was all sorts of stuff. There was daggers, there was books, there was a portrait of Adolf Hitler. And anyway, the auction has gone off and all these things, or most of these things, have transacted. But it has aroused some adverse comment. For example, one person online said that Third Reich items should be destroyed because they glorify an evil regime. And the organisation that our next guest represents, the Anti-Defamation Commission, has said that they want to make the buying and selling of Nazi memorabilia illegal. Now, I disagree. I do. I mean, the Nazi regime was about as evil as anything can get. In fact, we were always taught at school to try and not use Hitler as an example of evil because everybody else was doing the same thing. But it's a part of history. It needs to be looked at. It needs to be studied. That means there will be some people who like to collect, artefacts and so forth. I mean, would we not collect Roman coins because the Roman Empire did some pretty awful things? If you wanted to look at the, Torquemada and the Spanish Inquisition, that was pretty horrible too. But again, you can't whitewash it from history. Joining me on the line now, Chairman of the Anti-Defamation Commission, which, amongst other things, does fight anti-Semitism, Dvir Abramovich. Good evening.
Good evening, Tom. Good to be with you as always.
So do you think this auction in Bredbow on the weekend, a lot of which included Nazi memorabilia, do you think it should have been banned because of the nature of the items put up for sale?
I do think that this paraphernalia is not who we are. And I think we need to recontextualize the whole picture of what Holocaust and Nazi memorabilia is about. And I just want to give you an example. Imagine, for instance, if somebody was selling items from the terrorist attack in Bali that killed 202 people, or if somebody was selling guns or jewelry or belts from the murders of police officers Gary Silk and Senior Constable Rodney Miller, or from the murder of Eurydice Dixon or Jill Ma, or even Sister Malaspina. How would the community feel? So I think we need to look at Nazi items as profiting from the proceeds of crime. Especially, as you said, one is, unprecedented and terrible as the Holocaust. So we are planning next year to be launching a nationwide campaign. We'll be calling on state and federal governments to actually criminalize the trafficking in Nazi materials and, in a way, to denazify the marketplace.
But what if, for example, Alan Bullock, who is a very famous author who wrote in the 1990s, Hitler and Stalin, Parallel Lives. Now, he had to look at, and I believe bought some Nazi memorabilia in order to complete his book. I mean, if someone needs this stuff for scholarly purposes, should not they be allowed to buy it?
Well, let's look at what's been happening in other countries and what other auction houses have been doing. eBay, Sotheby's, Christie's, Amazon have banned the sale of these items because they realize that these items belong in a properly curated museums. This is the only appropriate place for Nazi memorabilia. And somebody wants to conduct research. Often what scholars do, they will go to an archive, or they will go to a museum, or they will go to a library. But Tom, let's state the obvious. There are auctioneers out there who have no ethical problem profiting from a regime that murdered 6 million Jews and millions of others. And this is a clear case of morality taking a backseat to money.
Okay.
Let's not pretend
that
this is about history.
Well, but for a lot of people it is. I mean, for example, where do you draw the line? I mean, some people argue, and this is what Alan Bullock's comparative book about Hitler and Stalin tried to argue, that Stalin was actually a lot worse than Hitler in terms of the number of people he killed. So, if someone, I don't know, has an old Soviet Union flag, for example, should that be banned? Or some Aboriginal activists would say that, European colonisation of Australia was a form of, Holocaust for the Indigenous. I don't agree with that, but that's what some Indigenous people say. So does that mean if you, I don't know, collect an Australian flag or something, are you guilty of this? Do you see what I mean? I'm not sure where we stop this line of inquiry.
I know, but just because something is relative doesn't mean that we don't discuss it, Tom. And I don't think there is a comparison between the Australian flag and what happened under the Nazi flag.
All right, well, the Soviet Union's flag then.
Yes, and maybe we need to look and to say that if anybody buys or owns these items, they can't say they do not identify or sympathize with the sickening ideology and the liquidation of men, women, and children. I think we have to make it clear that anybody who wants to, and we have to come back to the point of it's not so much owning, it's about the commercialization and the commodification of these items. And in all the debate, Tom, I think one of the aspects that seems to be missing is the survivors, those who lost parents, who lost kids at the hands of the Nazis. We are trampling on their feelings. These are people who, for them, the wounds are still raw. And we have to think about the victims. We have to think about the families of the survivors, how they would feel when they hear that there are auction houses around the country turning a profit, making a buck out of those. And I've called them before, these are the instruments of pure evil. We can't separate history from those items, Tom.
Thank you, Dvir. Dvir Abramovich, Chairman of the Anti-Defamation Commission.